Arizona dominated ASU on the gridiron and are poised to do so for a while.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network around. I'm your host, Leif Thulin, your resident college basketball guru, stats nerd, point guard by game, and ball knower by trade. And I'm excited, as always, to talk Arizona basketball and football with you today. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Today on the show, I'm going to react to the Territorial Cup dominant win over the Sun Devils of Arizona State. Review to the keys to the game that I gave previewing this one, which I think were pretty spot on. Didn't expect it to be this one-sided, but the keys fulfilled. The ones that the Arizona needed to win, they won. And then talk about potential bowl games where the Wildcats could land and opponents in those games. And also, as for the number 2 Arizona Wildcats basketball program, we're going to discuss their upcoming week against Auburn and Alabama, and also the injury to Ivan Karchenkov and what the latest rumors are there. So let's dive right in without further ado. Arizona dominated Arizona State, and Tempe 23-7 and squandered other chances too. It wasn't like they got every big play that they needed to get and eked this one out. It was one-sided and could have been worse. It was a dominant defensive effort. The defense was fantastic, and that's been the story of this turnaround. Arizona's offense was great, but couldn't get off the field in a couple of the losses, and now the defense is helping propel the offense, and they're working in very complementary styles to be one of the hottest teams in the country. Arizona defense was the story of the game to me, limiting the ASU offense to its lowest point total in conference play all season, and Arizona made Arizona State do what they did not want to, which was they had to trust Sims, the quarterback, to make plays with his arm and not just use him and Raleek Brown's legs. And that play meant the game style went Arizona's way. Arizona picked off Jeff Sims 3 times as a result of that game script and were firmly in control due to it. Arizona forced those 3 interceptions and also forced 2 fumbles in which they recovered both of them. So forcing 5 turnovers. And then there was the real broken play was Sims botched a handoff at Arizona State 6 to open the third quarter and set up Noah Fifita's 9-yard touchdown pass to Barmore. And that kicked off 20 straight points scored by the Arizona Wildcats. They were trailing at halftime, but it still felt like they were the better team, left some points hanging on the board. And Sims finished with just 114 yards, 11 of 25 passing. And his performance was so poor, which I think is more of a credit to Arizona's defense than some discredit to his performance. But it led for the head coach, Kenny Dillingham, to say, Jeff is 3-1 as a full-time starter. Like, I don't think coaches really do that. He said, I feel for him tonight. I really do. I just have so much respect and love. He's such a good human being. You don't really say that unless the performance was really bad and it was kind of a tearful moment of, oh, geez, like we just got smoked. Let's make sure the criticism in a rivalry doesn't really impact this guy because he was bad enough to have that be the sentiment. It speaks volumes to how good Arizona's defense was and how good the game plan was. The defense has to be extremely potent for a head coach of the opposing team to say that about the quarterback, to have, no criticism for the quarterback, but just defend his performance. The Wildcats clamped down on ASU from the start, holding them to 15 yards in the first quarter. ASU found some success in the second quarter on a 90-yard drive, capped by a 27-yard run from Sims, but that was it for ASU. And like I said, Arizona didn't necessarily score all the time, and they left some opportunities in the balance. They could have scored more. You had Quincy Craig losing a fumble at the Sun Devils 8. That could have been a touchdown, could have been a field goal. The field goal kicking was questionable. Salgado Medina missed a 42-yarder and then had another from some distance blocked, from the same distance, blocked. And Arizona also failed to take advantage of an interception by Michael Dansby that was taken to the Arizona State 37, and then they punt after failing to gain any yards in 3 plays. Then you had, to close the half, a field goal made, and I just think that Arizona had chances to be up 10, 12 throughout this game, And Arizona State had to be delighted, thinking, wow, we're up right now at a certain point in this game, 7-3, after being dominated and the game script favoring Arizona. We talked about game scripts, and Arizona wanted to make Jeff Sims throw, wanted to take away the run for Alek Brown, and they accomplished that. So I bring that up in terms of a recap of missed chances for Arizona to say that Arizona didn't win this game off of one defensive half. But the one that they were solid in helped, but the one where they were disruptive in and eventually capitalized won the game. In the second half, Arizona's kicker, Michael Salgado Medina, made 2 of his 3 field goals after missing 2 kicks in the first half and having another blocked. You had Riscano scoring a 1-yard touchdown, and Dalton Johnson capped off the 5th straight win with an interception. It was a very good way to sign off the game. It was emblematic of how the game went. You saw all phases help one another. Offensively in the first half, Arizona and the Wildcats had some struggles. Like the defense kept Arizona in that game. They played complementary football, and they would get stops, and then they were able to turn those stops into active changes and forced mistakes from Sims. They created turnovers, and right before half, Arizona was able to get points. And I thought that was big. Like that's important. And this is something that Coach Brent Brennan said. He said that we had some struggles, but our defense kept playing complementary football. They could get stops, and they kept forcing turnovers, right? And then right before half, you're able to get 3 points, which I thought was big. I wrote notes pretty much the exact same thing during the game. And then he said about the second half. In the second half, I thought we played great team football. And that's the thing I feel really good about. That's the thing I feel about this group. This is an awesome football team. It's really special, this Arizona team. The offense in the second half had a bunch of sustained long drives that kind of kept the ball out of ASU's hands, and our defense kept answering and coming up with big plays and takeaways. Just an absolute team win. I could not be more proud of us. So he basically said the first half was about sustaining and staying in the game, staying close, not letting this game get out of hand while the offense was making a few mistakes, keeping the defense on par, forced a couple turnovers, and right before the half, they gained positive momentum. Second half, blew the doors off ASU by being disruptive defensively and being complimentary on offense. And then that brings me to Noah Fifita, who I've said many times I think is the best quarterback in the Big 12. He threw for 286 yards, a touchdown, and continues to be a model for consistency and, honestly, excellency. And that brings me to the year-round swing that was Arizona football. Alarm bells ringing, myself included, hand up, and mentioning the poor last year at 4-8 for Coach Brent Brennan, a shaky record at San Jose State bolstered by 2 years of success and a lot of poor years around that, a 1-3 start to conference play. And I said the alarm bells should be ringing. If he loses against Colorado, he's out. And I thought he'd win against Colorado. But then I thought, okay, you got to beat Kansas. And even if you beat Kansas, I'm still skeptical. I think he may maintain the job and win 7 games maximum. But I just think the job he's done in terms of the tenor that was being spoken of by me, by others, about Arizona and their football program compared to where we are right now is one of the more drastic changes I can recall, no matter which team and which program. Brennan said about this team, to sum up the season, I'm so proud of this Arizona football team. Nobody thought they could. Check us out now. He is so right. The last 5 games, Colorado, Kansas, Cincinnati, Baylor, and Arizona State, even the most optimistic Wildcats fan was saying 3-2, meaning a 7-win year was the best. That was the best case scenario, and at least before the bowl game. And now you're 9-3. And it's not just a possible reality the further you got into those 5 games. It is actually the reality. 9-3 after starting the year 4-3 and 1-3 in Big 12 play. Amazing work from Coach Brennan, and it could culminate in a 10-win double-digit season. The Sun Bowl and the LA Bowl look like the 2 possibilities, and the Sun Bowl being the more prominent one, the marquee brands like Clemson or Miami, or maybe a Wake Forest coming out of the ACC as possible opponents for Arizona. Some suggested the LA Bowl prior to the clash with ASU, with San Diego State as a likely opponent. I think Arizona's above that now, but you never know. And I don't mean that to discredit SDSU, but Clemson or Miami or Wake Forest are just a bigger name that I think 9 wins and a strong finish to the season earns. Either way, Arizona's 9-3 and seems primed to have a great chance to make it a 10-win season, playing some of the best football in the country, and maybe most importantly, set up the Wildcats for sustained success and in the future, but also not so distant future, like in the recruiting world right now. We'll discuss that and what keys the Wildcats have achieved against the Sun Devils in order to beat them. All that and more ahead next on Locked On Wildcats. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, and the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices, jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices. With no surprise fees, what you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time in just a couple taps. I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25. It's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off with your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download Game Time today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. I'm Leif Thulin with you here for Locked On Wildcats. Appreciate you listening as always. And one of the keys I'll always give is quarterback play. Quarterback play is a key that deserves the focus here as we dive into the keys and storylines to watch for this clash, is what I said in my notes for previewing the game. I said that the Wildcats had struggled particularly against dual threat quarterbacks. Houston's Connor Weigman and Bear Bachmeier from BYU ran for a combined 189 yards and 3 touchdowns against Arizona. So the key would be slow down Sims, make him throw as opposed to run and set up the throw. And I said, despite Arizona's defensive turnaround, they're still struggling to stop the run against the better opponents. They've allowed 150 rushing yards per game, 8th in the Big 12, and that's improved as compared to early in the season. So I said the key to quarterback play will almost be, as simple as can you make Sims throw and be behind the sticks in obvious passing downs and then force turnovers with Arizona's obvious strength as turnover creators and let them shine. So that seems pretty spot on. Arizona forced 5 turnovers, 3 of which were thrown by Sims, and Sims was not able to establish the run. The next key I gave was Fifita will be pressured by ASU's capable but streaky on defense, registering 31 sacks this season, second most in the Big 12. That was prior to the game. I said Fifita would be the better quarterback in this game, as he should be, but in this game, Arizona has to consistently put together long drives and score 6, not 3. And that actually proved pretty true at the beginning because Arizona missed a lot of chances with field goal misses and blocks. So scoring 6 became important, and also sustaining long drives put pressure on the ASU defense and made them make mistakes respectively on offense as well. So that was pretty on brand. And then the key, of course, would be make Sims throw to beat you. And if he does, kudos to you. And how do you do that? You probably commit extra bodies to the box and trust your spectacular man-to-man defense in the secondary. That worked very well. So they did great there. They forced Sims to 11 of 25, 114 yards, 3 interceptions, 2 fumbles. Fantastic. The next one was, can you keep Fifita upright? Fifita only was sacked once, even with injuries to tackles, and that's really impressive. The last offensive key for Arizona was, can you stay balanced and establish the run? Because the Sun Devils are really good against the run, allowing just 119 per game, and that's the second best in the Big 12. And if not, then maybe they'll pin their ears back and get after Fifita. They ran for 88 yards with a combination of backs and Fifita scrambling, as opposed to 286 through the air. That's not a perfect balance, but it's not bad. It at least kept the defense honest, and it kept Fifita upright. As for the defense, the effort would be to stop the run. And how do you play Jalen Tyson while also loading the box? 100 yards rushing in total for ASU, who is one of the best rushing attacks in the Big 12, and just 22 yards for the weapon, Jalen Tyson, as a receiver. My big key, which everyone knows about and everyone would believe, but is worth restating, I always say, is if you can force third and obvious, meaning third and obviously they're going to throw the ball downs and not just be able to run and hammer and bludgeon their way to first down with a guy like Sims who wants to throw, but more importantly is turnover prone. There's a lot of optimism about Arizona winning, is my exact quote, should they force third and manageables to third and longs. Arizona State went 3 of 11 on third down, and Arizona went 10 of 20. That's huge. And I said the tangible goal would be holding ASU under or near their pretty poor 34% third down conversion. Well, they did better than that. They exceeded it. So that is a success. And now Arizona beat ASU 23-7 in Tempe. That is the reality. So they established those keys. They did well. But what does that reality about winning mean? They won those tangible goals were achieved, and they actually exceeded all those expectations. That has happened. Arizona now is has the better record, seems to have the better momentum from a team that was just in the college football playoff and seems to be one of the favorites in the Big 12. And now Arizona is running away with that and also has a higher recruiting class than ASU and may have a stronghold for the future going forward, winning this game and having belief that Brennan's the man. There was skepticism even before this game and throughout this season. They had a lot of recruits. There was belief behind Brent Brennan. There was belief behind this program. There was funding there. And now after this game, there's 6 4-star commitments for Arizona, the most they've ever had. The previous most was 5. And you know what's great? Kansas State was a team that many teams believed was going to run this conference along with Utah, along with Texas Tech once they got this funding. Well, Kansas State had a poor season, and Arizona just swooped in and stole one of their best recruits. In fact, Kansas State's best recruit just went to Arizona. And Arizona has 6 4-star commitments for football. And in basketball, we've talked about how recruiting, they can become a blue blood. This isn't necessarily mutually exclusive because Arizona has a locale that is appealing. They have a coach, a style of football that is appealing. The turnaround was so fast and the culture is so good under Brent Brennan that you can retain belief and keep guys in a foxhole and saying, you know what, we're 1-3 to start the season. Let's turn it around, go 6-3 in conference play, 9-3 overall, beat our rivals to finish, go 5-0 after coming out of a bye after agonizing losses. Like Arizona is so close to having just one loss on the season. If they could pull it out against BYU in double overtime, or if they could get one of those stops on a day where they could not get off the field on 3rd or 4th down against Houston, where they went 10-16 and Weigman torched them. Arizona is a far better football team, but had recruits then and are only going to be more popular now. Arizona, to me, is in a fantastic spot, both presently in terms of, they're winning, but also in the present in the sense that their present of winning right now congruently impacts the future, both in the immediate future of next season, the bowl game coming up, but also in the long term of the recruits they're getting now are going to want to stay in Arizona. And that's really important in today's day and age. There's too much flippancy. Players will turn around and say, we're going to transfer, look for money. Arizona can give you money. You can get success. You're going to be well cared for by a culture set by Brent Brennan, and you're going to have a chance to be prominently displayed in one of the preeminent conferences in college football. And you can win and be displayed doing so, playing a fun brand of football. You also have a quarterback for one more year, potentially like Noah Fifita, and a defense that's capable of stifling teams like ASU, who had aspirations to make the college football playoff and take the ball away 5 times in a game. It's a fun brand of football, a lovable coach, and a team with belief. After 4 wins, they can turn around the season after starting 1-3 in conference play, after having just 4 wins the season before, and have a chance to win double-digit wins. This is a team on the rise, and I should run Arizona for a little while. And when I say Arizona, I'm saying the state of Arizona there. Coming up next, we're going to talk about Arizona basketball, which is fantastic so far to start the year, 7-0, undefeated, number 2 in the nation. We're going to talk about their most recent win over Norfolk State, and most importantly, the injury news about Ivan Karchenkov, and touch on the battle with Auburn and Alabama coming up next week. The holidays always feel a little easier when you already know the perfect gift. And Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or sending someone something memorable to family, to friends, to whomever it may be, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to their door. And this week is the best time to jump in because their cyber sale is here and the deals are huge. The quality is exactly what you hope for. Incredibly tender steaks, rich flavor, and meals that make hosting or weeknight cooking easier. And the variety is underrated. Steaks, burgers, comfort meals, sides, desserts. It's one of those gifts that truly fits anyone. Save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during the cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See site for details. Thank you for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the number one sports podcast network around. Leif Thulin with you here. Really appreciate you tuning in. We talked about Arizona football being a tremendous spot. Well, Arizona basketball is the number 2 team in the land. And Arizona beat another inferior non-conference opponent in what I call bye games, meaning you should win those. But they actually struggled at times in this game. And they made only 2 3 balls, and you could say, well, that's not good. They were tied 26 apiece, like Norfolk State was hanging around. But the flip side is, in a game where they didn't look particularly convincing, they scored 98 points. And the defense does look for real. And they can flat out score, even without a dependency on Pete, on Jaden Bradley, and certainly they're not living or dying by the 3. So many teams have struggled some days, and they're not able to win by 37 against a team that may make the tournament, Norfolk State, as a 16. Like, that's not a marquee win by any means, but that's a decent basketball team that shot the lights out to stay in the game with Arizona. Arizona struggled early, no doubt about it. We'll go into that. But the big takeaway I'd have is Krivas and Burries looked improved in that game, especially from the start of the year where in a scrimmage, Krivas struggled against Embry-Riddle. And then he's coming out and he's dominating UConn. He's dominating Norfolk State. You expect that one, but you don't expect UConn necessarily. And he looks like the best player on the floor, including Jaden Bradley, including Koa Pete. And he, in particularly, helps raise the ceiling and continue the growth from what already is one of the best teams in college basketball, the team with the best resume in college basketball and plays in the best conference in college basketball. And Burries, a lot of people have been critical of him, saying, oh, that's a 5-star, but who knows if he'll ever figure it out. He looked as smooth as he's looked in any game in that game against Norfolk State, even in that first half that was questionable. Speaking of questions, the next question is, how severe is Ivan Karchenko's ankle injury? Because that is a starter going down, and that is impactful. But while that's a starter going down, I do think Arizona has enough to beat both Auburn and Alabama without him, if he has to miss. But he is, at the same time, one of the main reasons I'm so bullish on Arizona as a whole, and I have been so bullish on Arizona since before the season started. For those of you who've been with me since I took over, you will recall I thought he should be the starter from the scrimmages when he was supposed to be the 8th man. He's been a starter. Not only about that, I was so bullish about this team because I think they're going to rebound, they're going to score, and they're going to defend at an elite level that very few can match because Arizona's top 8 is one of the best in the country. So that's why I'm a little concerned. And this is what makes Arizona a touch vulnerable is in the long run, Arizona needs Ivan Karchenkov badly because if this injury persists, it carries on, it makes Arizona vulnerable because they only play 8. I mentioned top 8s. A lot of teams have a top 8, but they play 10. And I think playing 8's the best way through college basketball. You have 8 guys that are fantastic. It's a lot better than 10 that are pretty good. And in that case, if this injury persists, that makes him Arizona vulnerable because he's interchangeable in a sense with Delorso because he's bigger and rebounds better while Delorso shoots better and is maybe more of an offensive playmaker right now. He is not night and day ahead of Aristo, but he is better at defense and to my eyes has fit better on the team playing away from the ball and can play without the ball and still be impactful as a slasher and rebound the ball more so than Aristo has done. He does have fantastic positional size, and that does matter in the 8-man rotation. But 8-man rotations are the best in college basketball, in my opinion. And if you get to 7 and you lose positional size, not great shooting, but the capacity to shoot from the 3 spot, for capacity to get 10 rebounds, you become a little slim because foul trouble now makes you go deeper in the bench. You now have fewer bodies to play as hard as possible. And you lose an advantage that you have in terms of just the depth of the top 8s and their strength as a core being the better athletic team and the team that can overwhelm you athletically with 8 guys. Once you get to 7, once you get to 6, it's a little different. His positional size is massive, and you start to get 7-man rotations into Big 12 play, and I become concerned. The good thing, though, and I wanted to say this, is Tommy Lloyd's press conference. He said, obviously, and there's a quote, obviously I'm hopeful he'll play next week, but we'll see. To me, that bodes well for him to say we're hopeful because if it was a really bad sprained ankle or maybe a broken ankle or whatever it could be, Tommy Lloyd would tell you, okay, he's going to be out for a little while. He'll come back in January, February. To me, that bodes well. But my gut says he may be out, at least not playing a big role against Auburn. I wonder if they're going to say we can survive against Auburn at McHale and and will overwhelm them with size in the front court. It's not as important because it's a home game. I hope he plays, but I just feel like it's a lot to ask of for someone to recover so quickly in a non-conference game. That said, I think he'll play a huge role if he can playing a role of not sacrificing size, but can still guard against Alabama's speed and dependency on the three. He did a great job against Alex Caravan. Many of you noted that. He did a great job at times against UCLA. What he does well is he is big and strong, but he has the lateral quickness to pressure guys. Against Alabama, that's super important because they want to speed you up and play a lot of versatile wings that can shoot threes. And that's harder to do with guys like Tobe Awaka and Mo Krivas having to defend the perimeter and playing at breakneck speed nonstop. That's where his importance is even more necessary. Like, he's going to be important all year, but there are matchups that I think he's got a more important, impactful impact. And what I think those matchups are the ones defensively where his combination of size but being fleet of foot are the most necessary. And that's UConn guarding all the actions with Alex Caravan. That's against Alabama when he's going to be defending against guys who run like deer and want to shoot pick and pop threes. So let's talk about the game against Norfolk State really quickly. And one thing that I thought was interesting was how Arizona seemed sluggish and the defense from the Spartans from Norfolk State seemed gimmicky. But why were they struggling against a team that was flying around and asking them to do different things? We're fouling Arizona on the interior. But this answer from Tommy Lloyd reassured me, and I couldn't quite distinguish what was causing Arizona the issue, and it was bugging me as a basketball purist. And Tommy Lloyd said this, and I think a lot of my worries about the team and my worries about my own basketball knowledge got solved by this answer. He said, and I quote, "I didn't have on the basketball bingo card them coming out and playing a line in three defense," referring to the Spartans' defensive gimmick. I mean, I've seen the diamond, the whatever, the box in one, the triangle in two, but they played a line in three. So it just took the guys a little bit longer to figure out what was going on. And then to me, what stood out next was it took a little while. It took until the end of the first half. If you remember that game, it was tied up for a while. Arizona built a bit of a lead going into halftime and then ran away with it. Size and maturity stood out. And the best player in the game was the guy who I've labeled as the guy who controls the ceiling and how far Arizona can go the most, because he's the most uniquely gifted player in terms of a size and skill standpoint. And that's Mo Krivas. He was the best player in the game. And he scored on the interior. He rebounded, kept the ball alive. He had 14 rebounds against UConn. He had 20 points, a career high against Norfolk State. He's come into his own, and he's controlling the paint defensively. And once he's a force offensively, watch out, because he improves Arizona a ton. And he should be the third best player. I said that before the season. People were concerned, saying Awaka was better. Awaka's been great, but Krivas is the guy who can push Arizona to title contention. Tommy Lloyd said this about Mo Krivas. He's really impacted some of our bigger games. I'm really happy with where he's at defensively and on the glass. Those two are areas we really wanted to establish with him. He's always been a good offensive player, so I've never really been panicked there. It's just a matter of getting him getting some opportunities, us finding him finishing shots and making free throws. That's perfect because he's got good touch. He shoots the ball well from the free throw line. He even shot a three. He hits jump hooks. He catches lobs. He's coordinated. Defensively, he's taken an enormous leap to being an all-conference caliber defender, an all-American. If there's only defensive teams, but there's 15 players, he's been one of the top 15 players. He's probably been one of the top 10 defensive players, and he's anchored a top 10 team defense along with a team that wants to play quickly and has a ton of different guys who can score the ball. He is going to be a double-digit scorer on this team. Mo Krivas has been the guy who controls how good Arizona has been early, how good they will be down the road. And right now, they're the number 2 team in the land. And he's been a central figure in it. So I'm extremely bullish about Arizona. I'm hopeful that Ivan Karchenkov comes back this week. If he doesn't, I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem. I do think against Alabama, him missing could be problematic. But as long as he's back for Big 12 play, Arizona's still in a fantastic spot. Undefeated, one of the last 25 teams to be undefeated, one of the best resumes established in the last 10 years or so, and based on non-conference play alone. Arizona's in a fantastic spot. Mo Krivas pushing himself to all-conference nominations, playing like that already, and Tommy Lloyd recognizing how great he's been defensively and not worried about the offense. I'm not either. Tommy Lloyd's got these guys clicking. Well, thank you for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On Big 12. Drake Toll breaks down the most exciting conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championships and every game in between. Find Locked On Big 12 on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.